Does this look familiar? I'd say that's a picture-perfect representation of average aim, and pros are over here doing this.
Ends up shutting it down. Jordan not going to be finding value. What a fadeaway shot. Takes out the buy. Oh, the snap from Tens. Cleans up two. I didn't even see him fire at Monty.
And they make it look easy. I guess phrasing it like that is a bit misleading because it is easy for them. And the best part is that it can be easy for you too. And you don't need to even invest 1,000 hours aim training either. The thing about aim training is that it only improves one aspect of your aim. And aiming in Valorant is made up of way more than just one thing. I'm sure pro players would happily share with everyone the secrets of good aim if they actually knew what they were doing. However, they kind of brute forced the process through just putting in mass hours and stumbled upon the solution naturally. And so yeah, they have good aim fundamentals, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they know how to logically explain how they achieved good fundamentals, other than just saying to play more or practice more. And so that leaves most of the community in a weird spot because everyone wants to catch up to the pros, but no one really knows how. The cool thing about aiming is that once you get the fundamentals down, it actually becomes like really easy. The reason is that good aim in Valorant and other popular FPS games actually require far less mouse control than needed to succeed in your typical aim trainer. And you can actually see this when pro players try out aim trainers. Oftentimes their scores aren't even that good. But obviously the players are good because they have unlimited aim clips to show for themselves. So yeah, that gives us a ton of questions, but don't worry, I'll simplify it for y'all. All this means is that aiming in FPS games is much easier than people let on. Aiming is sort of like a puzzle. If you have all the pieces in the right places, it's gonna make perfect sense. But if you're missing a piece, just even if it's one or two, you're gonna get frustrated because solving the puzzle becomes literally impossible. In this video, I'm gonna do just that. I'll be giving you all the puzzle pieces you need to solve the puzzle we like to call aiming. For this specific puzzle, we're gonna need 5 pieces. The 5th is a real kicker that's gonna get you the best results, but before covering that one, we need to make sure all the other pieces are in place, because if we don't, you really won't get any benefit from learning it. The first puzzle piece is positioning. Positioning means lots of different things in Valorant, and I'll be giving you guys some exact rules to follow for achieving good positioning. Just know that your positioning is equal to your potential in any given Valorant round. A good position has high potential, and a bad position has low potential. Some questions to ask yourself in order to understand the potential of your positioning are as follows. Are you on high ground? Are you close enough to trade your team? Is your team close enough to trade you? Do you have fallback options if your current position is no longer safe? Can you help your team from where you're at? This could be with utility, a crossfire, or honestly anything you can think of. Or are you playing an off angle? If the answer is yes to any of these, chances are you have high potential positioning. However, the more positioning advantages that you can stack together, the easier your life is going to become. For example, if you have high ground in a position that usually isn't cleared and you have a teammate directly below you holding the same angle, well, if the enemy peeks you with no utility, it's practically a guaranteed kill. My point is, your positioning plays a huge role in how difficult an upcoming gunfight is going to be for you. I'll save you guys a more in-depth look at positioning for another video, just because the focus of this one is aiming, but just know that your positioning is extremely important and not something to be neglected. Alright, let's move on to the next puzzle piece. I think it's important we briefly cover crosshair placement next, because without good crosshair placement, everything I'm teaching you guys here is completely useless. Luckily, your crosshair doesn't have to be perfect in order to be effective. That being said, you're going to get the best results by bringing each topic I'm speaking about in this video to a mediocre level, as opposed to bringing one topic to absolute mastery, while leaving the rest at like level 0. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, especially with crosshair placement. They try to get it absolutely perfect, and they completely neglect all these other things about the game that are actually holding them back big time. The reasoning behind this is that each puzzle piece works together. And in developing your abilities more equally across the board, you're actually making the aiming process easier for yourself while also making it harder for your enemy. Don't worry though, reaching a decent level of crosshair placement isn't hard. Just make sure you keep a few things in mind when working on your crosshair placement, And then try to recognize when you might be slacking off on it a bit. A lot of learning really just comes down to your awareness. So, if you're peeking an angle and you're closer to the wall than your enemy, you should pre-aim into the wall with your crosshair before peeking out. That way, by the time you see the enemy on your screen, your crosshair is somewhat close to the target. And that's going to be our main goal for crosshair placement here. Not necessarily perfectly on the target, but consistently somewhere close by to the target by the time you react to them being on your screen. That being said, if you're holding an angle that the enemy doesn't expect you at, hold your crosshair wider from the wall so that the enemy will run out into your crosshair. And if you're playing an angle that the enemy does expect you at, you should keep your crosshair a little bit closer to the wall, not directly in the wall, give yourself a little room for your reaction time, but not too far off, as the enemy will likely close peek the angle. And that's another super simple rule of thumb for crosshair placement. If the enemy expects you, they will often peek close to the wall. If they don't expect you, they will often peek wider away from the wall. Finally, just be careful not to pre-aim into the wall if you're expecting an enemy might peek out at you. This is especially the case in situations where you have an opportunity to peek out as well. Even if you could theoretically pre-aim into the wall and peek the enemy in this scenario, sometimes it's best to trace your crosshair a bit away from the corner, just in case you do get peeked. Like I said, all of these tips are simply to get your crosshair closer to the target on average so that you have an easier time aiming in your upcoming gunfights. Don't stress out about it too much. It's okay to still be struggling because we still have 3 entire puzzle pieces left before our aiming puzzle is complete. Next up, we got movement. This is a huge one, but it's honestly way simpler than people make it out to be. As long as you're peeking properly and not crouch spraying at long distances, movement probably isn't your issue. I'm not gonna bore you guys here because I'm sure most of you guys already know everything there is to know about movement. Just make sure you're only peeking with one movement key, fully stopping before shooting, and if the enemy isn't looking at you or expecting you, sometimes it's actually best to not even move at all because this is gonna make aiming easier for yourself. At long distances, burst strafes are going to be your best friend because all guns in Valorant have natural bullet inaccuracy, and 2 bullet bursts with strafes in between are going to give you the highest odds of hitting your shots and dodging enemy shots. However, if you're struggling to aim while incorporating movement, I made a video for that, so definitely check it out. It's called Valorant Movement Aiming Guide. Now, if you find yourself dying instantly every time you peek despite peeking with good movement, first of all, I've been there and it's super frustrating. But don't worry, it's not your movement. It's actually more likely that it has to do with your timings, which is going to be our 4th aiming puzzle piece. Good timings can make Valorant feel like a game for toddlers, while bad timings can actually make the game feel impossible. The difficulty with timings is that a good timing can change from game to game, and it depends entirely on what the enemy is currently doing at any moment in time. An easy way to improve your timings quickly is to simply try and be more unpredictable. But I know that answer is kind of lame, so here's an easy example for you to follow. Let's say we hear someone run up to an angle. Instead of instantly peeking out the second you know that they are fightable, wait a second. Let them question a bit whether or not you were actually there, and then peek out when you either think they aren't ready for you or they give you some kind of advantage. Maybe you hear them holding W. I mean, that's going to be a free kill if you peek out. Just keep in mind that good timings don't always require you to be slow. For example, if your neon slides out of smoke and the enemies are spraying at her, now would be a good time to peek out because every enemy that's actively shooting their gun is going to need to wait for the recoil to reset before shooting you. However, if you lag behind even half a second, you lose that timing window. The big idea here is that simply by understanding the importance of good timings, you can start looking for them in your upcoming matches. Over time, you will naturally get better with your timings, but if you're still struggling, there is an even easier solution. Just try to identify if poor timing was the culprit of your death whenever you die. This was my main strategy of progression when climbing to Immortal for the first time. Hopefully, that gave y'all a bit better understanding as to how many different elements of the game actually are going to affect your aim. Yeah, mouse control is a part of it, but if all the pieces are put in the right places beforehand, well, your crosshair will be as close to the enemy as possible, you will be as hard a target as possible, and the enemy will be an easier target. And so aiming itself just becomes a simple adjustment. That being said, most players struggle hardcore with that final adjustment, which is where the final aiming puzzle piece comes into play. By now, I'm sure all of you guys understand that where you're looking when aiming matters a lot, so I won't bore you with specifics. Many people say focus only on the target when aiming, and I used to preach this as well, but it's wrong. Ask any pro aimer, if the shot is easy, you should be looking at your crosshair with the target in your peripheral vision. The whole goal of this video was to teach y'all how to prepare for gunfights so that you could more consistently do just that, make your gunfights easier. And once you successfully make the gunfights easier for yourself, you should be focused on your crosshair in order to aim the most accurately. And this shit helps a ton with consistency. I will say at very close range duels where the enemies are big on your screen, target focus is still good. And if I'm caught off guard, I will often focus on the target with my eyes to reap the benefits of faster reaction times. But once my crosshair is close to target once again, I will revert back to crosshair focus once more. Both are important, but to put it simply, crosshair focus is better for easy shots and small adjustments, whereas target focus is better for big adjustments and harder targets. Anyways, thanks for watching, have a wonderful day, Zapper the Yapper signing out.